So I watched the entirety of the Amazing Digital Circus, and I'm proud to come out as one of the cold fanatics of the show, so much that I will grow out bunny ears and paint myself purple for the movie. But in all seriousness, this show is something special. Rather than feeling forced or unfunny like most of the other animation projects out here on YouTube, it felt really interesting. Even if it isn't a plot that is as novel as demons doing hits on humans or demons wanting to absolve people in hell, it catches the viewer. And this comes as no surprise, for it's definitely the biggest currently running show on YouTube. And even if it's about to end with the up and coming movie releasing in June, it still had a good run. However, the show, even if captivating, has a very big problem, and that is the audience. I promise you, if this show were to release on Netflix or on whatever then it wouldn't be so unappealing to the mainstream. Once again, one can blame the cold fans. The fandom takes the cake for making the series somewhat unappealing. This isn't the first time this has happened before. We've had products such as Undertale and my recently covered show, Hell of a Boss. Look at the description. However, I want to focus on TADC and why it has garnered such huge popularity, especially within such a small amount of time. The Amazing Digital Circus started running in 2023 September, and even though it had a pilot episode showing itself into the world as a bet, it had such a big public acclaim that in less than 3 years, they've managed to release 8 episodes, each within a span of 3 months from each other, and also have a movie prepared to premiere in next week, meaning that the whole show lasted less than 3 years to conclude its storyline, which is pretty much record time in my book. Now, people on the internet seem to be agreeing on one thing. TADC has a massive problem, and aside from the obvious, I personally believe it's not what mainly deviates people from the show. I have full faith that if people were to just give it a try, they would see what good it can offer, because it brings a lot to the table. The show, despite being tailored to people of all ages, really deals with very mature themes, much like Undertale did in its time. In TADC's case, it has been heavily inspired by products such as Stanley's Parable and most apparent, Harlan Ellison's short story about people being trapped inside a software and then being treated to whatever the software's AI has in store for them, generally puzzles or what you could call them adventures. In TADC's case, the story takes a much more comedic approach, being delivered to the viewer in neatly packaged emotional rollercoaster episodes, and then bringing more exposition than the last, not only about the world building, but also about the characters. And the characters in this show is what I really want to focus on. Each one of them has a certain personality, and they even have an entire episode dedicated to explaining this. But I digress. There are 7.5 characters total that we've seen on screen. This avoids the clusterfuck of storylines that we see in other shows and makes this one stand out by comparison. But the biggest thing about the show to me is the psychology of each one of them. I believe they picture them exactly as they should, and what I mean by this is that they nail the personalities just right. Look at Jax, for example. Everybody hates him, but he's just tsundere, or what the youngins would call him nowadays, nonchalant. He makes it seem like he doesn't care about anyone, like he hates everything anyone would try and do for him, but in reality he's the only one who doesn't want to leave. He literally starts to break down when the others start to step closer in finding an actual exit. He behaves like the embodiment of the personality he is or once was, better than in any form of media I've ever seen, and the others aren't too far off. Ragatha is another prime example. She dwells more in being good to others, or at least showing that facade. I believe she prefers to be annihilated first than letting anyone down or harming them directly, and she holds on to this ideal so much, especially in episode 6 of the series. And this is a nice segue to the title of the video. My main problem is the storyline, or rather, how small it is. Everything about this series is great. The character design, the soundtrack, the dialogue. There is no major flaws like there is in media similar to it. Why then is it so short? Why didn't they take their time to develop something grander? A story that would make us feel for the characters more than just having 12 minutes of them suffering in the last episode, and that being the end of it all. I believe the main problem with the series is them having so little time to build up the actual climax. And just before the movie, technically the antagonist has already been dealt with, so what is there to look out for? Right now, the story seems pretty much summed up, and even if there were some loose ends, it feels as if we had just gotten rid of Homelander on season 1, and they could have done so much better with the series. It feels like a little bit of a waste. But after finishing the script for this video, I do what I normally do to torture myself, and so I went into Twitter to check any new stuff on TADC. And now I do know the answer as to why the show ran so short. Most of you should already be aware of this, but the fandom in reality is disgusting. At least, part of it is. And I'm saying this because of the revelation I made just moments prior to making this video. Lo and behold, Gooseworks, the creator of the show, actually made a response as to why the show is ending so soon. And her response was that she didn't really care. Now, this may come to a surprise, especially taking into account how big the show itself has become. And this is, you guessed it, because of the fans. I find it truly disturbing and disgusting, the fact that a show so marvelously crafted that only makes people want more of it, seeing an end so abrupt that it's making the creator herself lose her mind over it, not because of the pressure to deliver, but because of the mandates of the fans. All along, I tricked you guys. Because this video, even if originally wasn't on the fandom, it now is. So much so that the author is suffering because of it. I really hate this part of the internet. How it all is so beautiful and yet so hideous. But oh well. The best regards, Gooseworks. Ever since having listened to her Rules Card fan song for Deltarune, I have respected her. I just hope she can move on with other shows and keep doing what she's doing, for it definitely works. Rant is over. Thanks for watching.